Hello and welcome to this week's beginner's guide. This week we'll be looking at the 4 synthesis hero skills, which can be found on the hero screen here. If I click skill points, you'll see the upgrades that I have available to me, the ones that are locked, which we only have one right now, and the learned skills. We will be taking a closer look at the yellow ones, this one, this one, this one, and this one soon. And after that, we will talk in detail about some of the stronger synergies that currently exist for the synthesis secret tech. I expect that the 2 expansions planned in 2020 will introduce some new combinations with the secret tech, but I do feel like I know enough about this secret tech to start making a useful synergy guide, and yeah, we can just update that with a quick little video after we know what's in the expansions. Who knows, maybe it won't actually change that much for the secret tech. Maybe the expansions only introduce new secret techs and no new races, and if that's the case, then this one's good and I don't have to change anything. We're now ready to take a closer look at Disrupting Hack. Disrupting Hack only costs 2 skill points and can compromise mechanical and cyborg units in a 1 hex wide area, or it's like a grenade. It can hit the target and 1 hex around it, so it's kind of useful if you're fighting mechanical and cyborg units. It's pretty great against cyborg and mechanical units, but you're not always fighting those types. Sometimes you're facing ethereal units or biological units, and in that situation this is pretty useless. So if you don't have anything that you know you're going to be fighting that's mechanical or cyborg, don't take this hero skill. Compromising is I believe it reduces your stagger resistance and something else. Here we go. It reduces stagger resistance by 1 and makes it so that the target is a little bit less resistant to arc damage. It'll take more damage from arc attacks. So yeah, it's quite nice if you've got the damage channel arc damage. If you're playing like say Syndicate or Assembly, this is all of a sudden a lot better. But even not, if you are fighting against robots, you might want to consider taking that hero skill. And now we are ready to move on to Override Damien, which is really interesting in that you only need to be level 4, but it requires a lot of skill points. Let's just jump to here really quickly to compare the skill point cost and the required level. You have to be level 8 for Compromise Exploitation, and you need 4 skill points. That's less skill points but a higher level requirement. So this is something that is quite powerful in the early game, but is also situational. Just like the last one, it works best, or rather it only works against mechanical and cyborg units. It doesn't work best, it only works against cyborg and mechanical units. You have to get reasonably close, only range 5, and when you do that, then you can attempt to mind control a unit or disable it, which is very, very powerful. If you can disable a unit, they can't fight. If you mind control a unit, guess what? They can fight, but it's on your side. So incredibly powerful. Definitely worth the 6 skill points if you're going to be fighting mechanical or cyborg, but that it isn't a given. I'm not going to pretend like you should take it all the time, because that's definitely not the case. Assisted Breach is different. Assisted Breach is just good against everybody. All attacks by units in this hero's army, that's this stack right here, these 6 units, if this unit has the Assisted Breach skill, then all of them can bypass 1 shields and 1 armor when they're attacking. Let's say we attacked a unit like this. It has no shields, can't bypass that. It can bypass 1 armor like this, so it's effectively only got 4 armor from attacks that can bypass, like attacks from units with this. There are other ways to bypass shields and armor, but this is a really special one, a really nice one. And the last hero skill we're going to talk about here is Compromise Exploitation, which can apply Electrified to compromised units, which, once again, I believe Compromise can only go on robots. So it's one of those more situational hero skills. You don't necessarily want it all the time, but if you are facing maybe against Dvar, who have a lot of mechanical units, or the Vanguard, then it's pretty good, and you may want to just take that to make it so that they can't use mechanical units, and then you can counter the rest of their stuff with other things. Maybe just invest heavily in some nice mods, because the Synthesis have, I think, some of the best mods in the game. So yeah, I'm not sure if we went over skill points. You need 5 here, 6 level 6, which is a little bit more skill points than even this one. Makes sense all around. That's amazing. This is situational, so they're gonna make it cheap, but you know, give you a decent level requirement to get that, because Electrified is still quite good. It's really nice if you're fighting those robots. Let's see if I can find that effect. Yeah, damage over time and minus 15% accuracy, especially good if you're fighting ranged robots. If you're fighting melee, they can get in close, and that accuracy penalty is not so useful, but if they're far away, very useful. Now, before we jump into all the synergies between the different races and the Synthesis secret tech, I did want to talk about the backgrounds that I like using, as well as the differences between the 6 type of hackers that are in the game. I like using Star Union Scholar to research mods quickly for the Synthesis. Star Union Scholar is just it allows you to go down the secret technology research tree a little bit quicker, as well as the bonus to pickups, which is very nice. But if you can go down this tree quicker, you can get this mod, which is amazing, a little bit earlier, and this mod, which is also quite nice, a little bit earlier. And if you're so inclined, you can try and rush towards the malware Damien, which deploys a unit, and if you can put that on like 18 units and bring all 18 units of those into a fight, maybe, you know, you can apply it to more. I forget how many you can fit in one battle, but it's a lot. You can essentially double the number of units that you have in a fight, which is very important in this game. If you can make a match that was even, let's say you brought 18 units, the enemy brought 18 units, and then double your numbers, you're going to get a lot more attacks, and that means you're going to kill their units first, and that probably means you're going to win, unless there's some kind of crazy weird situation where they just counter you really hard. This is a very great way to just give yourself a nice tactical advantage in combat, and it's definitely worth the Cosmite. Now, let's jump into the hackers. We've talked about what I like in terms of backgrounds. The others are all okay. It depends on what you want to focus on. Star Union Scholar is my favorite because, you know, you can get some nice mods, some of the best mods in the game. Now, all of the hackers are slightly different. I love how the secret techs have some variations between all the different guys. Like the Dvar here, they have the shields, which give them 2 more armor unless they are flanked, which is kind of nice. They have some really useful skills. This one is amazing because it can give stagger to a lot of units, just like a grenade, but it also can compromise mechanical and cyborg units, so it's pretty good against anything that's not mechanical and cyborg, and just all around amazing against mechanical and cyborg units. But yeah, nothing really crazy over here. This is pretty similar to the Kir'ko. The Kir'ko have Swarm Shield. That's their special mechanic. They can get extra shields if they're standing next to other Kir'kos who can Swarm Shield. And let's compare that to the Assembly, who can reconstruct Damien. That, I believe, is the best. This one is the best hacker because of this skill. Being able to reconstruct a dead unit into a Damien unit is very, very nice. It allows you to yeah, just have more people in a fight, which it's similar to the malware Damien. It just allows you to have a nice numerical advantage against the enemy. This is the same as the other guy's stuff. And oh, let's not forget that he can scavenge a little bit at the end of a battle, getting some health, has a little bit of arc resistance. That's slightly different than the other units. We haven't talked about the Amazon, which from what I can tell actually don't have anything special. I thought it was very strange that they don't have the ability to not be affected by line of sight, but I think that's partly because the Amazon are an unintuitive combination for the synthesis. They don't have any cyborg units or mechanical units. They focus heavily on biological, but they do like getting into range 5. So there are some strategies for it. It's just not a great strategy for the Amazon. I think even Kir'ko have more going for them in terms of pairing with the synthesis. And yeah, that's why I think this unit's slightly better than that unit there. We haven't talked about Syndicate or Vanguard. Let's talk about Syndicate next. The Syndicate one here gets a Breach SMG round, which is just nice. I love it. It's able to bypass 1 armor and 1 shields, and if you combine that with the hero skill that lets you do that, you're bypassing a lot of armor, a lot of shields. And is ideally good against people who have both armor and shields, but even if they just have armor or shields, that's bypassing quite a significant amount of defensive. So I love that about the Syndicate hacker. Unfortunately, this one's not indentured, but if you're playing Syndicate, you can grab other people's races and indenture all of these. It seems to be a pretty popular strategy online. And now we can talk about the Vanguard. The Vanguard, instead of the normal secondary attack, which is Scrambling Virus, they get this little shrapnel grenade, which has range 3 instead of range 5, so you have to get a little bit closer, but it can also cause bleeding on top of the other little special effects. So quite nice. From what I can tell, all 6 races have valid strategies for the synthesis secret tech, but some are better than others. For example, the Dvar is a really strong combo because the synthesis secret tech provides technologies that cover some of the Dvar's early game weaknesses, which are lack of healing on mechanical units and low accuracy. If we jump in here really quickly, I can show you that this mod right here gives you a little bit more accuracy, which I like a lot on my bulwarks. If I am playing Dvar, the bulwarks I found typically miss a lot of shots, so just increasing it by 10% is a pretty useful change or mod that to apply to that unit. I also like that if you go to this technology, if you grab this thing, then you can heal your units on the what's it called, this strategic map. So yeah, that's pretty good if you are like, if a lot of units took a lot of damage in a battle and you're able to keep them alive but they're pretty low and you want to try and use them soon, you can use this. You can spend 80 energy getting them all back up to full HP. So that's pretty good, and it's only in the second tier of technologies, so you can get it very, very early. There's other things along the way that can give you healing and or increased accuracy, but the Dvar have other things over here which you may want to pursue to try and get yourself some healing or maybe increased accuracy. But honestly, I really like focusing on the synthesis tech tree, so maybe try and do that if you're playing Dvar. The Dvar have a lot of mechanical units, so once you have this, they all count as integrated, which means you don't have to use a mod slot on turning them into integrated units. If I check in here, this guy's integrated, and another way to do that is to use that Guardian Damien shell, or the other thing we were just looking at. I forgot what it's called. It is targeting Damien. I wouldn't put it on the Prospector. As I said earlier, you want to put on something like this guy. this is quite nice. It makes them integrated, which is kind of redundant, so you may want to consider other things once you're further into the match, but I think it's worth putting on him relatively early, even though it is slightly redundant. But yeah, these biological units here, they kind of need something like this so that they can take advantage of a lot of the operations. A lot of the operations look for integrated units, so I would recommend you put at least one of these on your biological units. And before we move on to the hero skills themselves, I did want to go over how I like that the Dvar Hacker has a repeating attack. I'm not a big fan of this single attack, which does high damage and is, you know, it does more damage if you're in a trench and can be used for flanking, but you have to kind of save your trench for flanking if you're going to do that. Otherwise, this trencher is probably going to get picked off. So, yeah, the hacker does have to worry about flanking, because then it bypasses a lot of his defenses. But in general, I think that's not that bad. It makes it a pretty awesome unit compared to this one. So I would invest heavily in that to give yourself maybe a higher damage output. Now we are ready to jump into the hero skills themselves. Let's take a quick look at the Dvar's hero skills that I like. I like Siege Master. Siege Master is a pretty good one. It only costs 5 skill points, and it makes it so that you are more resistant to all types of damage if you're in cover. Only if you're in cover. If you're out of cover, not so great. But it's pretty easy to get in cover, so I generally take it. It makes it so like this guy effectively has 7 armor if somebody's attacking him in a way that doesn't bypass armor, or if they are, it's like he has 2 shields. Let's say somebody uses psychic attack, then it's kind of like I have 2 shields because I have 2 more resistance to that attack, and that can't be bypassed. Yeah, incentivize can be nice if you're dealing with non-robots, but we're dealing with robots of pass. Juggernaut, I'd never take pass. And hardness training, okay, not that great. Stubborn can be okay, but really not that great. Armor, very good. I like armor a lot. And nitro battery, a very, very nice skill for the Dvar because it can make your cyborgs able to move further, and so that they do a lot more damage for 3 turns. On top of that, the cooldown is only 1 turn on this skill, so you can just kind of have a hero making all of your synthesis robots incredibly powerful every turn or so. While Amazon synthesis isn't the most obvious combination, I actually really like it. A lot of people online were saying that the Amazon don't have any synergies because they don't have any mechanical units, but one nice thing that I like about the Amazon is that they have access to a nice little weapon mod for their biochemical damage channel. If you research, where is he? It's infusion ionic, there we go, this one. Then you can make it so that your bio damage is now arc damage, and a lot of the synthesis mods rely on arc damage. The compromising makes it so that there's the enemy units have less arc resistance, so by turning your guys into able to do that, you are able to do a little bit more synergy that way. On top of that, the Amazon have a lot of skills that only have range 5 on, and so do the synthesis. If we look at a hacker or a network link or an avatar, which I forgot to spawn in before we started this, but I can build pretty quickly, pretty easily, by just doing this, I believe. And there's an avatar. You can probably see that some of his skills require range 5. Yeah, range 5. A lot of them are range 5, which means you got to be pretty close to your enemy to do damage, and that's similar to the Huntress here. And because they have to fight at a medium range, I believe the developers gave both the Synthesis and the Amazon some really good mods to increase their tankiness or their survivability. One of my favorite ones for the Amazon is this one because it gives you 1 shields and makes you harder to hit. That's all around really, really good. If you can combine that on your biological units with this, making them 20% harder to hit by range attacks, all of a sudden your units are very evasive, even at the medium range. So you can go in, have your Huntress blind a unit, and maybe they'll just dodge all the attacks that are on them. If you put them in a lot of cover, that sounds like it's pretty likely. So yeah, I think that's something that people have missed, something that if you want to play around with a unique combination, one that a lot of people haven't tried out because they say, oh, that looks useless, this combo doesn't have any obvious synergy. This is a fun one. I think this could be a really cool one to play around with. Personally, I haven't actually played a map on it, but just looking at the mods you have available to you in the early game, that looks very, very powerful. And if you have nice mods, you should be able to expand very quickly and use those advantages that you get from clearing out sites to snowball into a very powerful nation. Now, let's actually talk about the hero skills themselves. This person can, make their bio resistance go up. I usually pass on the biology expert. Can heal biological or cyborg units 30 points, which with the Synthesis secret tech is a little bit worse than usual because they have a lot of mechanical units, but Amazon have a crazy amount of biological, so I'd still take this. I think that you can put a lot of mods on your biological units to make them integrated to take advantage of the Synthesis operations and also some of the Amazon little skills that are like this that really help biological units. Visual acuity, another amazing skill. I always take this because it's always nice to have a little bit of extra range. I mean, every once in a while your accuracy is too low for you to fire from far away, but there's a lot of ways to compensate for that, like taking the Deadeye trait. Animal discipline, probably a pass, but maybe not if you got a lot of animal units. I guess you could maybe side with the growth, and if you do that, then maybe animal discipline is worth taking. Warcry is probably a pass. I don't like that as a full action, requires 3 action points, so yeah, keep that in mind. Call the Wild, amazing. I would do that. It's so good. It's so good being able to get an extra person in your fight. Sure, it only is 1 unit, but I don't know. It seems pretty amazing. Ranger training is a pass, and there's nothing down here under learned. Synthesis assembly appears to be one of the most popular combinations on the forums, which makes sense because the Synthesis focus a lot on cyborg and mechanical units, and the assembly are 100% cyborg, so you don't have to apply any mods to take advantage of the operations that look for the integrated modifier. All of them are 100% integrated right from the beginning of the game. There are some really nice ones which heal up your units and make them a little bit stronger. There's one in here. Yeah, this only applies to integrated units, so that can heal up all of your assembly units even if they have 0 mods. I like that a lot. But I honestly feel like it is a little bit overhyped. A lot of the other classes have some nice synergies, but I actually haven't played with this one, so I may be underestimating it. I mean, it does have the arc damage channel, which means that you can make the most out of your hackers, which is a pretty powerful unit, and your avatar's attacks. They both do arc damage. The network link does not, but I think you're going to mostly be using this guy for attacking, or this guy for attacking if you're playing assembly. At least that's the way I like to, that's the way I like to play Synthesis, not assembly. And by having access to all these mods, they just get better and better and better. So yeah, the assembly have access to them and the syndicate have access to them. So both of those are pretty nice options for that reason alone, to combine with the synthesis. And yeah, I think the fact that this guy has firearm mods, which you can then apply to this unit over here, the network link, makes it a really nice strong combination. At least initially when you're looking at it, you see that, you're like, well, both my weapon channels can be applied to these different units, so this is the best class combination. But like I was saying with the Amazon, they kind of need to be tankier. The assembly are pretty tanky as is, and making them tankier might have diminishing returns at a certain point, but I'm pretty sure people like being tanky. It's pretty hard to take out somebody who doesn't lose units as quickly as you. If you're losing units and yours are just sticking to the field, that's really hard to deal with. So I understand why this is one of the most popular combinations on the forums, but I do feel like people are overlooking some of the other ones because it makes sense thematically. Now let's jump into our hero skills. Assimilate is good if you're melee. Yeah, you can pass on that most of the time. I don't usually make my main hero or that many heroes melee, so maybe pass on that. Nanite boosters, having a little bit of stagger. No, this isn't stagger resistance. This is resistance to all effects. Is pretty bad. I wouldn't really take that very often unless you're facing somebody who's just like constantly throwing effects on you. Stagger resistance can be good, but there's other ways to get stagger resistance. This is only one level instead of stagger immunity, kind of like the Dvar one, which just gives you the stagger immunity. But there are vehicles who do give you a little bit of stagger resistance, so yeah, if you combine this with that, it's just as good as being stubborn. And this is okay if you're taking a lot of damage, maybe take that, but for the most part I actually don't use battlefield repairs. I think it's better to take a skill that makes it so you don't take damage, and that way you can use it in pretty much any fight, versus this only really applies to fights that went poorly. Or it applies to armies who have been in fights that didn't go so great and have a lot of healing to do. Cybernetic overdrive is very strong with the synthesis because you can like manipulate your hackers. You can make the hackers get their action points refilled. So yeah, very nice. I think there's more. Yeah, stunning discharge could be good. Gives you a little bit of a static charge on the enemy or a stun, which, because there's a lot of units that apply arc damage, could be pretty good if you get the charge, which is usually like, yeah, I hate it if I use the skill and I get the static charge. I usually is like, well, that was a waste of a turn. But you know, it does do a little bit of damage on top of the stun, so you can keep that into consideration. Maybe if you're going with the melee hero, you can use this to give him a little ranged attack that has a cooldown of 2. I actually haven't tried that, but I like that idea. Just off the top of my head, it's a decent idea. And then being able to reassemble units is very nice, always nice. And healing for 35 HP is also pretty darn good. Synthesis Vanguard is another one of the popular combination on the forums. It's a little less popular than the Assembly and about as popular as the Dvar. Both the Dvar and the Vanguard have access to a lot of mechanical units, so once you have the first level of synthetic tech, they become integrated and can take advantage of the operations. But on top of that, there's a lot of nice things that go with the Vanguard. For example, I really like that the Vanguard have access to the firearms damage channel, like the Assembly. They can apply those mods to their network link, making it a really nice shooter with all those other support abilities. You know, every once in a while you don't want to support, you just need to finish up a unit, so being able to have this guy apply some of those stronger firearms mods, it's quite good. You could do something like this on him, or something like this. You know, you got options. I don't think there's anything that can turn it into ionic damage. Oh, no, there we go. Yes, you can turn that into ionic damage to make it so that everybody's doing arc damage. Pretty nice little combination. And on top of that, I was playing around with the mods earlier to see what combinations we have, and you can actually make them really dodgy, like I was saying with the Amazon a second ago, or a little while ago. If you want, you can apply this Guardian Damien shell with something else that makes your guys evasive, and I found that that's really nice on ranged units if you want to make your troopers just stand a little bit further back, so that the enemy can't engage them very easily, and when they do, they miss their shots. That works pretty well. This says right here that the summoned unit will inherit any compatible mods that do not grant an active ability, so you know what? That unit that he summons in is going to be quite evasive and probably able to draw fire, keeping the trooper safer for longer. So yeah, I would think about doing that on your troopers and maybe on your flying units, because flying units can't take cover, they need evasiveness. Maybe put them on your owls or your on your gunships. Your owls you really don't want to move too far forward because of the way targeting field works. You want to keep them at range 7, and that is close enough for people to move in and shoot them. Giving them a little evasiveness will make it so people are just a little less likely, they're discouraged and moving up, because, well, that will open up the AI to some flanks from your units, and they don't want to do that unnecessarily, especially if they don't think they're going to do any damage. Now we can talk about the actual hero skills. We have Dig In. I like Dig In. Being able to have more resistance from all damage channels, while in cover is super nice. The field medicine is something that I do generally pass on. I don't like healing after a fight. I like doing damage in a fight so I don't take damage. So take other things that can help you with that. Rallying Cry is something that I usually pass on. Being able to ignore morale penalties for 2 turns seems, I don't know, pretty bad actually. And yeah, let's jump into the other things. We have Coordinated Strike, makes it so that they can act like a owl but from further away. They got 9 range versus the owl's 7, so yeah, you know, it's potentially worth taking if you don't want to use your hero that much for attacking. If you got a lot of long-ranged units, maybe you've integrated or absorbed a race that has snipers like the Syndicate or something, and you just want them to do the damage for you. This could be a good call. Iron Discipline is okay if you're fighting people with psionic damage, but apart from that, pass on that. Martial Inspiration, yeah, probably a pass, especially considering that you got a lot of mechanical units in the synthesis tree, and you may be making a lot of mechanical units from the Vanguard, which, you know, don't get the morale but bonus. Battle Plan is okay, maybe take, but probably not. I usually don't. And that's everything for their hero skills. Synthesis Syndicate appears to be one of the more popular combinations on the forums, and I think that's because, like the Vanguard and the Dvar, they got a lot of mechanical units that when you build them will have the integrated modifier, allowing them to synergize nicely with the operations that look for the integrated modifier, while you will put some mods on them that would apply the integrated modifier. That's usually pretty expensive, and it's nice to be able to just save some cosmite by leaving some mods off of some units and, you know, applying them to biological units that might need that. Things like your snipers, they might need that. And on top of that whole dynamic that the Syndicate share with the Vanguard and the Dvar, they have a really fun mechanic that you can use with hackers from other races. If you want to indenture hackers, you can't do that with your own syndicate hacker, but you can do it to people who belong to another race, and then they will be able to get benefits from overseers and subjugators. The subjugators, I believe, can reanimate people who have the colors on, and the overseers can keep them alive a little bit longer if you use this little special skill in them, which after that skill goes away, I think it lasts one turn, it keeps them from running out of health. You can use a lot of syndicate things to heal them up. There's a lot of nice heals that the synthesis have a lot of nice heals that you can apply to them to get them back up to fighting condition, to give them enough health to stay in the fight. The indentured are all about stacking as many positive modifiers as possible, and I think the synthesis, they are pretty similar to, they are tanky, which means you're not being necessarily negative towards the enemy, you're trying to focus on making yourself better. So I'm sure there's some things that I missed there in my research, but it does seem like a lot of people do like indenturing things from other races, just going out, conquering them, no diplomacy, and then turning them into their cannon fodder. Let's see, I know there's more in here. Somebody said they really like alternating between Aegis Protocol and healing. If you use this to heal up your units as they're taking damage, and this to give them more shields to make it so they take less damage, you'd probably start with this one, and then use that or another thing which heals your units. I know there's more around here, but I don't know all of them off the top of my head. Then you've got a really nice combination in terms of just spells. You could focus a lot on spells, and I think have a nice return on it. The network link can reset cooldowns on your overseers, so your overseers, I don't know if I have one here to show off. You know, I can build one, I just need to take a second to do that. But yeah, these guys are really good. If you reset their special, can't believe I didn't have one. And oh no, we did have one. Never mind, I didn't need to do all that. But yeah, this makes it so indentured units do more damage. But this is the really special. No, that's not what I meant. This is the really special skill. It keeps them from dying. If you want, you can reset that. It isn't something that requires a. You can only use once a battle. It only has a cooldown of 2, so you can actually kind of, you know, use that, heal a unit, and then come back to it. Or you can use that and reset that and then use it again the next turn to keep a unit that's low on health alive and just dealing damage. I really like attacking, using this, attacking again, and then like not worrying about the unit because they can't run out of health. If they're already at 1 HP and they well, I guess you can't use this if they're at 1 HP because that would kill them, right? It takes 5 damage. So yeah, you do have to do a little bit of healing to use it over and over again, but it seems like a nice little strong combination that people were talking about in the forums. They also were saying that the Syndicate don't have any tier 3 or tier 4 units that use arc damage. A lot of them use psionics. Let's go over here. That's psychic, 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 and arc. It does have a tier 4 unit. I got that wrong in my notes. I got to change that to tier 3 units. And the synthesis does, so you can kind of combine your tier 3 unit here that does arc damage with some units like the Wraith tank who does psychic damage to have some strong units which can apply the mods from both damage channels, psychic here and arc here. I know that you can turn your psychic damage into other things. Forget if there's a one that does arc, but it doesn't seem like you can turn your psychic into arc damage, which would be neat. It'd be cool if everybody could do arc damage, but the fact that you can use both damage channels on tier 3 units is really, really cool. and definitely not worth overlooking. I'm pretty sure that's everything I had in my notes here. Give me just like 2 seconds to check before we move on. Yeah, I think we're ready to talk about the syndicate traits. So we have Keen Eye, which is pretty good if you have a sniper, but doesn't really pair as well with the synthesis as other people. I mean, if you want, you could put some. Ooh, I didn't see that guy came with that. You could put this thing which makes you evasive, and then maybe if you've conquered another race that gives you an evasive mod, you can apply that. We have this, but that's not a. It's only able to go in mirages. Makes sense. I'm out of Cosmite, so I can't apply all these other things. There may be another one that's available to, whatchamacallit, the Syndicate, but I didn't see it when I was doing my research. It's pretty easy to miss something like that. But yeah, I think pretty cool. Can I, yeah, confirm that? It's good. Whatever. We've talked about Keen Sight now. We can move on to Strategic Operations Support, which is something I usually pass, but I could see being somewhat useful. Subterfuge is another thing that I generally pass on because I don't like camouflage. I want the enemy to know what I have so that they run away from me, sit on their cities, and I can fight them when I want. Then I like Escape Module. Escape Module is pretty good, unless you got another thing that can resurrect you. And then I think you can only do one or the other. There may be a patch coming that makes it so that you can do Escape Module and then another thing that keeps you alive, but right now it's one or the other, I believe. Shield Battery, always really good. I like that. Backstab, yeah, it can be nice, but I generally pass on it. For 4 skill points, it's not as good as it could be. If that was 2 skill points, more worthwhile. Deploy the Cerebral Control Collars, pretty nice. If you mind control somebody at the end of combat, that turns into indentured in your service. If it fails, they're disabled for 1 turn. Okay, cooldown of 3, pretty good. I would take that. Synthesis Kir'ko is not very obvious in terms of combinations because, well, the Kir'ko focus on biological units, not mechanical or cyborg units, so you may be thinking, how could they pair it all with the synthesis? And it's similar to the Amazon that I was talking about earlier, how the Amazon can work with the synthesis. The Kir'ko need a little bit of tankiness. Some of their units can die off, especially the ones that get into melee range, the frenzied. I don't have any here, but if you know Kir'ko, you know the frenzied. They're nice units in the early game, but they do die off relatively quickly, so giving them a little bit of tankiness is very, very nice. Personally, I really like putting the Guardian defense shells on my flying units. There's a lot of really cool flying units like the Engulfer, but I think the Engulfer is one of the ones that you want to keep relatively far away so that you can just throw down this hazard every once in a while and force people to run through the hazard to you. If they're running through the hazard, they're losing armor. I believe that's how that works. And you can also just kind of like bait them into grouping up, running towards you and grouping up, and then throwing this down and on a lot of units. So because it has a range 5, adding something that just gives them a little bit more ability to dodge the enemy is very, very nice. And once you've conquered other people, you should be able to get some evasive mods from them that you can apply on your guys. I think we've got some Vanguard in here, so if I go in, put in master skills, then you'll see that I could come in here, put oh, we need more Cosmite for me to demonstrate this. Remember it. Now you can see I can put on a Guardian Damien Shell and the combat one. Can't find it right this second. Improved combat sensors to make yourself more evasive. There may even be something in here that makes them even harder to shoot, but I might not put that on here. If you got these 2 mods, they're going to be really, really hard to shoot, then maybe somebody's going to fly in and do some melee damage with a flying unit, but there's very few ones that can do that. So I'm thinking you may want to infuse him with this, make his attacks do a little bit of arc damage, so that it pairs with your synthesis units, like your hacker, or maybe your avatar, or the network link. These guys are pretty good with mods too. I know I have a stack out here that's highly modded somewhere. This is the modded stack. They've got a lot of regen, which is something that can keep them alive. They don't really need to get as close because of the way their barrage works. But yeah, just Kir'ko in general, they need some extra defenses to help them swarm out into the enemy space. If you have those nice synthesis mods, which you get from here early on, then yeah, you can kind of snowball and expand very quickly and be the horde. Thinking that's everything I had in my notes. Yeah, we're ready to talk about the hero skills now. Now, Kir'ko. That's not the right hero. Let's go here. The Kir'ko. I have a lot of guys, a lot of nice skills. This is for melee people. I'd probably pass on that for my main hero. Selfless Sacrifice, linking to another guy is okay. Probably wouldn't put on my main hero. Shrouded Step is quite nice because it makes people harder to shoot. And because the synthesis need things that make them more defensive, or benefit a lot from things that make them more defensive. That sounds like a nice combination for the synthesis people. Guiding Presence is always good. If you have a lot of units on the field, you can just keep them back and shooting, and that'll give you a bigger numbers advantage quickly, or it should, because you have increased accuracy, and that should allow you to pick off enemy units. You have Echo of a Hive Mind, always good, I would take. Fear of the Swarm, always good, I would take. Invigorating Pheromones, probably should take that. There's very few units that the Kir'ko synthesis can get that aren't biological. You can get, you know, hackers, avatars, and the network link, which are only 3 units. Everything else is biological, so I don't know. Seems okay. Seems like it could be worth taking. I did take it in this playthrough, but I would understand if you didn't take it. If you went machine heavy, then that's cool. Maybe you conquered a race with machines and you decided to go machine heavy. That could work. And that's everything. That's all I wanted to talk about in this guide. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and maybe share the video on social media. I've heard that does wonders for the channel, so yeah, I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow the channel. It's a little slow going, but that's okay. I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying researching these videos and putting them together. We'll be doing more beginners guides in the future. I've done a lot in the past at a rate of 1 a week. We've got, I think, one on Promethean, Xenoplague, Celestian, and the Heritor Secret Text. There may have been one that I left out there, but I know we got a couple more left to go. So yeah, hope you find that all useful. See you around.